So that's the R18, which is pretty much the last major bike launch that we've seen this year, and now everything's kind of paused, hasn't it?
Yes, for some reason, don't know why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see how the rest of the year plays out. BMW have pulled out of EICMA and Intermot, as have KTM. I just wonder, they're saying they're going to do, I think we mentioned this the other week, that they're going to do a lot of online bike launches now. But even so, nobody's really buying bikes right now, understandably. So I don't know if people will just hold off for 2021 and launch some of their bikes then, or who knows.
I think a lot of things are probably just going to write off this year, and I mean, you can't literally delete it, but it feels like that's what a lot of people want to do and maybe should do.
Just wait for it to pass. But there's still plenty of rumours of bikes for next year circulating. So at least we got that to look forward to. So we thought we'd enjoy the possibility of more bike launches next year with some of the delayed ones and some of these rumours. And we'd run through the 10 most exciting rumours that we could find so far this year. I think you were going to take the first 5, and then I'll run through the latter half.
So the first ones, they're mainly Honda, the first few, because we love Honda. Yeah. But you've ridden a fair amount of them recently, so you've probably got an amount to say, which is useful for things like the 1100 engine, which they seem to be wanting to put in a few bikes, at least 2 that are rumoured or confirmed.
For sure, yeah.
Coming out. So the first one is the 1100 Rebel, which I don't think you've not ridden the 500, right? You've not ridden the smaller one.
No, I've not. I mean, well, the looks don't excite me. It's not something where, and the fact that it's a 500 as well, it's just not a bike where I'm like, I've got to go and test one of those. I want to know what that's like. But you've ridden one and you said it's really good.
You borrowed a 125, right? You was it Sinis?
Yeah.
That you borrowed a 125. And you had fun on that, I think you'd admit, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So there is something really nice. It's a very different kind of bike. Obviously, it's not going to appeal to everyone, but there is something nice about a playful little 500cc bike or something in that smaller range. Yeah. So I have ridden the Rebel, and I absolutely love that thing. I do take what you say by the looks on board. It does look a little bit like it's hit a wall and shoved itself in, or like someone's cropped the image in Photoshop
and that tail
just got the
light
proportions slightly wrong. Yeah, maybe the tail light.
It's just a rectangle.
So it's not the prettiest looking bike out there. But it's a really, really fun little 500 cruiser, and there aren't that many competitors for it. I really like the bike, and I am quite excited about the prospect of 1100, a bigger version of it. Obviously, it's going to lose a little bit of the sort of playfulness of the 500, but it will be very different to the other things it would be compared to or in competition with, like Harleys and Indians. Yeah. And the Triumph Bobber, for example, something along those sort of lines. It's a very different kind of bike. I would imagine it won't be anywhere near as heavy as a lot of those bikes either. It's set to use the 1100 engine from the Africa Twin, which they will slightly tune, or they'll tune it slightly differently, which is logical. Probably going to be somewhere around between 94 and 100 brake horsepower. But, in a cruiser, it's probably going to be a little bit punchier, dare I say, than some of the lazier kind of cruiser options. It remains to be seen, but it's quite a fun bike.
Yeah, I mean, I borrowed the Africa Twin with that 1100 a few weeks ago. Absolutely loved it. It was my favourite thing about the bike was the 1100. And I wonder, they'll tune it down a bit, but actually it kind of revs up quite well. I wonder if it'll rev a bit harder.
I mean, for a cruiser... For that class of bike, it's still going to be quite a responsive, I would imagine, quite a revvy bike for a cruiser. For that kind of...
That sounds pretty fun.
I mean, maybe more tuned towards something like a flat tracker. Maybe it would be better to sort of style it a little bit more that way.
Yeah, I saw that they copyrighted patented 2 frames for naked bikes to go around the 1100. So one's like a steel frame, like a traditional cradle, and then one's more like a backbone, which would be like more of a sports naked type bike. But it must be the cradle must be for the Rebel if it does come about. But I must say I'd be way more excited about an 1100 Rebel, given that I like that engine so much and it feels more appropriately sized for that style of bike than the 500. I think I could get on board with that.
It'd be nice. It also, I'd imagine, would sound awesome because the Africa Twin sounds gnarly. It just sounds angry. It's great.
Yeah, we both like that exhaust, didn't we? With the control valve.
Brilliant, yeah.
It's closed, so it sounds really kind of punchy at low revs, but when you rev it out, it sort of opens up, gives it a bit more power. But yeah, I can see why you chose that one.
Yeah, it excites me anyway, probably not everyone. The next one is the same engine, but again, slightly differently tuned. It's the
DeVille.
I'm definitely pronouncing it wrong.
I think it's just DeVille.
DeVille.
I think
DeVille.
Last time we spoke, you said Deauville.
I did say Deauville. Do you know why that was, though? Because I know someone who has the original, or had it, and they called it a Deauville. But even they said it with a question mark on the end of it.
Every time they said it.
The sentence. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm taking out the Deauville. So yeah, that's potentially coming out in the near future. It probably won't be called a DeVille. So you can forget that name and cast it asunder. Only because the first bike...
It had a bit of a bad rep. I think that's probably why they would change the name.
So you don't want to attach a name that people didn't necessarily love the first time. They nicknamed it the Deauville because it wasn't the most exciting of bikes. So the chances are they won't bring back that name. They will bring back a similar style of bike. They're probably going to call it something like either Silverwing, like a baby Goldwing.
Yeah.
As it is a bit more of a touring focused bike, or an NT1000
or 1100,
probably,
I guess.
Or I guess 1100. Yeah. Well, I've seen 1000, but you'd call it 1100.
Because that's the original DeVille was based on the NTV, wasn't it? But you obviously can't have the V anymore if it's parallel twin.
Exactly. Yeah. So they would have to drop the V and stick it NT 1100. Yeah. Either way, it will be a good touring option, I think, but might still fall within a category of being bland to most people's tastes.
It's like a proper practical bike, the original DeVille, isn't it? It's like got plenty of luggage, cheap, runs forever. But yeah, I remember, I think I was saying to you last time, my dad, he was looking for like the first generation, but he found a second generation, which was, I think the first gen DeVille was still carburetted, whereas the one that he had, the second gen Mark II, fuel injection for that line of bikes, and it was a bit choppy. So he didn't really like it, got rid of it quite quickly.
The engine thing, the same thing, right? You know the engine, you know it's a good engine. So we know it won't be choppy. It's going to be a smooth, quite powerful, quite grunty twin.
Essentially, it's the Africa twin, like with more bodywork and lowered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
Essentially, yeah. Which is definitely a good thing, yeah. Potentially going to have the DCT as well, which, again, I know you like because you tried it in the Goldwing.
Yeah.
And in that kind of bike for a tourer, it's quite nice not to have to worry about gears and things.
The only thing is with the DCT is it still does have a little bit of jerkiness to it sometimes. Like, it's just inevitable. And especially at lower revs as well. The weight of the Goldwing, 350 kilos or whatever it was, 360, I think, obviously smooths that out a little bit. The smaller the bike, the more you might feel that jerkiness. So it'd be interesting to see what it's like on it.
Potentially.
Yeah.
That is. The NC 750, though, I believe also has a DCT option. So maybe it's sort of closer to that one in terms of performance.
Well, I've still got the XADV in the garage. Honda haven't asked for it back because we're all under lockdown, so I can't get it back to them. But that's got DCT, and that's a smaller bike. I've ridden it once in the time that I've had it. But yeah, I'll get a feel for how DCT is on a lighter bike, although it's still, let me look quickly, XADV weight, I think it's like 238 wet.
Ooh.
Yeah, same as my street twin pretty much, but for a scooter.
Yeah.
But that's probably realistically around what you'd be looking at for an 1100 DeVille, 238 kilos. So I'll get back to you with how DCT is on a bike of that weight. What's up next?
So the next one is a bit of an odd one. I wasn't really sure. Maybe I don't know if it's the same the world over, but the CBR 600 range trailed off. They'd focus more on like the 650s and stuff, I believe, or at least they still had the CBR 650. So they're bringing back, seemingly, the 600 sports range, which was a kind of magic era of bikes where you had things like the Ninja 600, the Gixxer 600, the Honda Yamaha R6. There was this sort of magic number. They fell out of popularity a little bit, so it's a bit of an odd one that they would decide to bring back a 600cc sports bike. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'd be surprised as well. It doesn't really seem like it's a market that's like viable But they're such a big company, they can sink like the R&D into stuff like this. But also the fact that they have a 650, you know.
So if it's any sort of, I don't know if it's related to that engine or if it's similar. I would imagine parts of it will be, but it's supposed to be something around 130 brake, I think. Sort of, it should be standard for a high-end sports bike because it is the CBR 600 RR, I think. So you've got all the R's on there. So it's really, really, really sporty. It is going to have winglets, which I know is exciting to both of us. We love a winglet.
Because it's the sort of thing where it's like superbike tech, you know. It's on like the 200 horsepower, you know, bikes that can pop a wheelie at like ridiculous speeds. Obviously, then it trickles down to smaller bikes, and I just really want to see how low we'll go when it becomes commonplace for 600s to have winglets. Who's going to be the first to put it on like a 250, and then down to like a 125? The other thing that I said this ages ago to you, the thing that I find really funny about winglets is like bike manufacturers are always looking for the next piece of tech with which to give you a reason to upgrade to next year's model or give them an edge over their competitors. So riding modes or cornering ABS and traction control, you know, those kinds of features. Now we're looking at like radar assisted cruise control and safety systems, stuff that you have to put loads of money into developing, and they're probably not that cheap to make at the beginning, although some software stuff, you know, it's a few chips, so they probably get the money's back. But the thing that I love about winglets is like it's billed as this high tech, you know, this is wow, this is like Ducati start putting them on pretty much all the Panigales now. They give you all the figures, like it's this much downforce at this speed, and it stops it kind of wobbling and stuff like that. And you're like, well, it's just a bit of a, because on the Street Fighter V4 S, am I thinking right? It's not even carbon. It's just a piece of plastic.
Oh yeah, no, there's like that shin stripper where you, I mean, they look deadly as well. Did you see them up close?
Yeah, they look sharp.
Like they do some damage.
But I just find it very funny. Like a piece of plastic as a winglet probably costs about 50p to make. You just stick it on the side of the bike, and then you're like, this is the highest tech, bleeding edge motorcycle. Yeah, you know.
But also, if it's bleeding edge, I mean, we could all surely just attach them with the same kind of performance upgrades to our bikes.
I've got some, mate.
Find them.
Haven't I?
There you go.
You've seen them.
Are you gonna stick them
I bought them on eBay. I was going to do it as an April Fool's review on YouTube, like Aero winglets for trying Street Twin, but I just never got round to it. I was too busy with fatherhood. But maybe next year. It won't be as topical or funny next year.
More important things took precedence. Yeah, stick them on there.
Do you want them for yours?
Do you know what? Because all these bikes are coming out next year, it'll be more current and up to date if you do it next year as well. So save that one.
Do you want me to post them to you for your CB 1300?
Yes, please.
All right.
Because it needs something to keep it down. Right, yeah, and the next one then, still Honda. Again, this I think is as exciting to you. I've not ridden the Africa Twin, so I have nothing to compare this to, but they are allegedly bringing out an 850 Africa Twin. You spoke about that, I think, last time in your review and all the stuff you talked about with the Africa Twin, about them potentially bringing out smaller versions of it. And this seems like, because a lot of their competitors already have a bike of the similar kind of size, they're going directly after the rest of this market. Those being obviously things like the Tenere from Yamaha, the BMW F850. There's a few other ones as well, but basically KTM I think I've got one that's relatively similar. The Victoria 790 Adventure, is it, from KTM?
Yeah.
If I'm remembering that correctly.
Well, it'd be 890,
but either way, there's
a
lot of bikes in that sweet middle ground for an off-road bike, and you want it to be slightly lighter. Maybe you don't want to go for a big old 11 or 1200cc bike if you're taking it off-road.
So
what do you reckon?
On the Africa Twin launch video on the Honda channel, if you look at the comments on there, there's so many that are just saying we want a stripped back, lighter version of this. And there's loads of comments saying that. And as we always say, what people say in comments on YouTube is different to how they actually behave once they're, down the dealer with a card in their hand. Would they actually buy it? Probably not. But there seems to be some demand for it. What I would like to see anyway is, like, the reason the Tenere is so popular is because it's cheap and it doesn't have like traction control and any real like rider aids like that. I think it has to have ABS, and it does have like a LCD display, sort of rally style. But really, it's slimmed down, and people feel like that's what they want. They don't want stuff that will break. They don't want extras. They just want something cheap with a good engine, and that's kind of like as uncluttered as possible, because they just want to ride it off road. So
it takes are you actually going to take it off road? So maybe this one is more geared to actually taking the thing off road with the possibility of dropping it. You don't want to go.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
balls to the wall on.
If they do this, I'd love to see it if it was really stripped back. I wouldn't, want to see like an 850 version of the Africa Twin Adventure Sports, which has got all like the bells and whistles. It doesn't need to be that. It needs to be more like the Tenere. That's what I think, anyway.
Well, we'll stay tuned. The last one is off Honda. We're going to sidestep Honda and go to one of my favourites, a brand that is very close to my heart. Moto Guzzi, as you will have seen, posted something for April Fools, or at least someone did. I don't know whether it was actually them or whether someone else had. But it was a very crudely photoshopped version of the V85, saying that they were bringing out a bike with 4 cylinders, a big old V4, but transverse V4. Which certainly would be a strange bike, but this is not a real bike, sadly.
Well,
not sadly.
I had a comment on my channel where someone is on one of my like list videos where someone said, "Can you post a video about the V4 Moto Guzzi?" And I don't know if they got taken in by it or whether they were just trying to sort of troll me, like double April Fools. But I don't think that counts as an April Fools. You can't just tell someone else's April Fool. But anyway, I'd already seen it.
No, you got to come up with it. Be original with it.
Yeah.
And it was pretty original to say that they're coming out with the 4-cylinder. But no, what this got me thinking at least, and I think the same. We've had the discussion about this. What would you want to see the V85 engine in? You actually have tried it. I haven't, but I've tried other Moto Guzzis. And for my money, I mean, there's a few sort of options. I don't know necessarily what they would call it, but I would like to see a street version less than an adventure/touring version of the V85, because that engine would be nice to see in something like the V7, something of that sort of size, potentially with the moniker Sport or not. I was thinking of the other ones, but Le Mans seems a bit of a stretch to me. I think that would sort of undersell the name somewhat. The one that I really want to see it on, for very obvious reasons, is a Grizzo 850. Whatever they decide to call it, I would like to see that engine utilised somewhere else.
I think because it's about 80 horsepower. The V7 and everything, same with my Street Twin, to be honest. They feel a bit underpowered sometimes. 80 for me is a real sweet spot on the road. Sort of 80 to 100, where like you can actually, especially down towards that 80 end of the spectrum, you can actually feel like you're wringing its neck. You can have the throttle pinned and you're not going to get into any trouble on the road. But obviously the V85, it wasn't too wallowy, but it is a bit too tall for that kind of riding. So yeah, just like a road going version with that engine, I think it'd be great fun.
It'd be fantastic. Yeah. It'd be also, you'd presume as well, a little bit lighter. So that 80 horsepower
goes a bit further.
Feels like more when you're on something a bit smaller.
Yeah. Good brakes as well, I think. The V85.
Yeah, they don't tend to. Italian brands don't tend to compromise on it anyway. But the same with my V7. I think it was, at least when it first came out, people said the brakes are better on the V7 than the Street Twin. Obviously, the Street Twin's been updated recently, so it's got better brakes now. But back in the day, like I say, the Italian brands don't tend to compromise that much on brakes, if at all.
So let's switch over to the 5 that I've chose. And the first couple of bikes here are from Harley. There was some patents revealed for a cafe racer and flat tracker. And I made a full video about this on my own channel. But Tim, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. So the cafe racer, both of them will be built on the Revolution Max engine that we know is going to be used in the Pan America, the Bronx, and the 1250 Custom. So this is the kind of like new water-cooled Revia V-twin. But yeah, these are kind of 2 bikes that potentially could follow those other ones as the first kind of batch of bikes to use that engine. The Cafe Racer, it looks a bit like a big muscle bike like your CB1300 or something to me. It has that big tail section to it. It's like a big, powerful bike with a little bikini fairing. It's not proper cafe racer. It's not like, I don't know, it doesn't look like a Thruxton or kind of a R9T racer or something. It definitely still has the look of a Harley, an American bike.
Yeah,
but I think it looks pretty damn nice.
I thought so. Yeah, I think that was the one out of them that caught my eye the most, definitely.
One thing that I like about these new Harleys is the finish. They have like a lot of matte finish on them and this kind of goldy, bronzy finish to some of the engine parts. I think it just looks absolutely great. The Tracker, on the other hand, bigger wheels, high pipes, a little square headlight, and then a typical Tracker seat unit. We thought that'll go up against the FTR 1200, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know which would be my pick. I still think the Indian looks a bit cooler to me, but this is still, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's also a little bit more different as well to go for. Oh, I say that. I mean, this is going to be pretty different when it comes out. There is nothing else like it. So it definitely is a new wave for them. I still probably would go towards the Indian, though. It'd be interesting to try them back to back.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, as I said, I think the Pan America, the Bronx, those all come out first. Those are the ones that are planned to be made. But hopefully these patents will come into production eventually. Next one that I've got is the new Hayabusa. So the old one, or the last one, I think it's been off the market for a couple of years. We've got Euro 5 coming up. So it's going to be even stricter emissions regulations as of next year. But there's patents being filed for a new Hayabusa motor with a new exhaust system that would help it pass Euro 5. And then there's also patents for a redesigned frame and swing arm. So, then you're starting to think, well, these are the sorts of things that mean that it could become a reality. Because I think when I was doing research for kind of new bike rumors, I think I saw there was like a patent for a supercharged version or something like that, like proper one of those manufacturers pie in the sky, just patent it just in case somebody else does it sort of thing. These are kind of a lot less, they're less exciting than a supercharger or something, and that makes me think, well, they're quite realistic. So hopefully it does come back. New bodywork, new paint, you'd expect. They probably update stuff like the dash as well, and put a kind of LCD or something like that in there, or maybe even a TFT. But yeah, the reports are that it'll do over 200 horses. The last one was 173 horsepower. So that'd be kind of exciting, but I still feel like Suzuki, well, for a start, it's quite a big old bike, 200 horsepower. It doesn't sound as good anymore when you consider that, stuff like the Panigales and the what else does 200 horses? There's H2.
Yes, well, that's
those
the thing.
kinds of bikes.
For me, it conjures up the image of the H2. So it'd be H2 versus Hayabusa. And I have to say the H2 has just some sort of extra sort of piquance to it. It excites me a little bit more than the Hayabusa, which I really want to be excited by Hayabusa, but I feel like it will be pretty middle of the road. It needs to be some massive showpiece bike to show what you can do, because that's kind of what the H2 is. It's not for your average person or average biker to go and buy themselves a H2, and certainly not even if they can afford it to use it to its full advantage. So it is there to sort of show off how ridiculous they can make a bike, although I hear reports that it actually handles reasonably well. But yeah, the Hayabusa needs to be that, really. If it's going to play in that field, it needs to be kind of ludicrous. Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I think this just looks like another updated version. And Suzuki have been a bit lazy anyway lately. I mean, thinking back at what they've released recently, the V-Strom, that was their big launch for 2020. It's just a retro body kit, basically, to look a bit more like the DR Big, and they've made some changes to the spec, but it's not a new V-Strom. Same with the Katana the year before, body kit onto their existing GSX S. I always forget this. So yeah, take your naked sports bike and put a retro body kit on it. The SV 650 X, was it? That was quite cool, but again, it's just their existing bike with some styling tweaks. So yeah, for the Hayabusa just to come back with a bit of a tweak and make it Euro 5 compliant, it's not that exciting, is it?
What, meeting the emissions rates for bikes isn't exciting to you?
I mean, no, not really.
All right, well, each their own.
So yeah, I'm sure that'll excite a bunch of people, but not me right now. R18 Classic. So we talked about the R18 earlier. They also patented like a big tourer that would go head to head with Harley's touring range essentially and try and steal some of that market share in America. So it had a big screen on it, luggage, a bigger, more padded seat, different exhausts that run under the luggage. And I think it looked like it had a bigger tank because it's quite a small, I think it's something like 16 litres or something on the first edition of the R18 they launched. It was not big enough for serious touring miles on a 1.8 litre bike. So
No.
I'm looking forward to seeing that, to be honest. I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like that bike anyway. Everything they want to do to sort of adapt that bike, I'm into. I'm digging it.
You're on board?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. What other variants do you think they'll put out? Is that pretty much it? Like a naked one that they've got now, and then this classic, as I believe it's going to be called.
Yeah,
a big touring version.
I mean, unless they do something really, really avant-garde and strange with it, it's they're going to have to follow the mold that other bike manufacturers do, right? So you've got your stripped back kind of street version, which is a bit cool but not as practical, and then you've got your big touring thing, and then something in the middle. So I don't know what else they could do beyond that.
A few people commented on my R18 video saying that they wanted to see that engine in the GS, a 1.8 litre GS.
All right, fair enough. To be honest, I want to see it as well. I don't want to own it, but I do want to see it.
Speaking of adventure bikes as well, my last one that I've got here is some kind of renderings or artist impressions of a Aprilia Touareg 660 have surfaced, and this looks pretty good to me. So the RS 660 was launched at EICMA last year, which is a parallel twin front two cylinders of their V4. It looks awesome. Like I was just saying, around 100 horsepower, but quite lightweight. So a usable amount of power on the road. And it's beautiful as well to look at. That same 660 engine is also meant to be used. Well, there was a Tuono sort of semi-fared concept. Not that exciting because essentially it's basically the same bike as the RS 660, but with more comfortable bars, I guess. But the Touareg 660 was in this big fish tank with all these vines and stuff growing over it, so you couldn't actually see it. So it must have been really early development stages at EICMA last year. But apparently that's getting closer and closer to being a thing.
Oh, no, I said it from the pictures that I've seen, it is pretty from the concepts.
Yeah. I don't know if those are all related to Aprilia or whether it's just someone having a little...
well, if they're not, they need to hire whoever made them because they are pretty nice.
But again, this would go in against the Tenere and middleweight Africa Twins, so that would be pretty exciting. Although I don't think they'd get down to that price point of the Tenere. I think it's like $8,000 or something brand new, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, most other bikes can't compete with Yamaha. Yamaha tends to be pretty bloody good at their pricing.
Yeah, I agree. But that's our list, 10. You might think I just did 4, but I count the Cafe Racer and Flat Track from Harley separately there. Get my numbers up. Out of those 10, Tim, which one are you hoping will make it to production?
Complete pie in the sky, we're talking V85 street bike. That, for me, would be the most exciting, but that is also the one that there is nothing about. This is just pure conjecture on our part. As far as the bikes that we've spoken about, the one that I'm most keen to throw a leg over, I'm really keen to see what Harley do with that Cafe Racer and their new engine setup would be really, really nice. Revolution, was it called? Can't remember now.
Revolution Max.
Revolution. I'm looking forward to see. I won't forget the Max. It's important. But no, definitely looking forward to seeing how that responds and how they develop actually as a company. And then the Aprilia maybe as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for me it's between the Harleys and the Aprilia. I think it looks cool.
Yeah.